everybody, and welcome to the To All the Girls Success Club and Basement Chronicles Live. Do let me know if you can hear me. I think I got the live going on Instagram as well. Oh my goodness. Yeah, let's see. Hi, everybody. Hey, Willow. Oh, my little niece is on. Can you imagine that? Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Dublin. I'm a health and life coach, and I help you to speak, to live, and to lead with confidence. Because why should you not win in life? You know what I mean? So, join me just for a couple minutes while I just delve into something that's been on my heart lately. Because I did a video back in January, really detailing, my own journey. Where's my drive coming from? Some of what I've kind of like my journey through life. And I think I realized that it was pretty important to me, this immigrant journey. And I want to talk about that today. So, tag an immigrant, especially an immigrant professional, somebody who has moved from home, wherever that person called home, and has found themselves in a new space, is making home in a new way, and, perhaps struggling with it like I did. And so I wanted to talk today about a couple tips for dealing with a new, hey, Constance, how are you? Dealing with a new environment. What do you do? And, how do you get by? How do you win in a new home, in a new country? That's what we want to talk about today. So go ahead, tag somebody who is perhaps preparing to move, has moved, and perhaps is struggling, or can everybody hear me? Let's hope this mic is working. I'm just trying to get this right as well. Okay, so um, I I live now in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I'm from St. Lucia in the Caribbean, and we moved some 9 years ago. And it's been a wonderful journey. It has had its ups and downs, a lot of learning along the way. And I think that's perhaps where I want to start. That especially when you come from a culture that is way different from where you're coming to, there is a lot of learning. And as an immigrant, there is so much that you have to kind of deal with, a lot of stress, a lot of learning, a lot of, hey, I did it this way, but it might not be the best way to do it. What then do I do? Where do I put that stress? And do I humble myself for me to get by? Do I chart my own course? Do I tell everybody off and say, like, my way or the highway, which might not be a good thing to do? And so I want to jump off at that point in terms of coming into a new country as an immigrant and trying to find your way. And especially for people like me who came from home already qualified, already having a certain amount of, or perhaps enjoying a certain amount of, success in your old home, but nevertheless finding it necessary to move. And you move here, okay? And perhaps like me, like I was not the first in my family to move to Canada. My uncle came here in 1975, right? So my family has been here for a while before Edmonton was built up. Lots of things that were taking place. So they came at a time when it was not very popular to see many black people around. And so, we're coming from that. And I'm basically the third generation from my family to, I mean, it is what it is, okay? But you come here and you are already an adult. Some people come as kids, some people like me came as adults. What do you do in that when you have to learn a whole new way of being, of living? It can be tough. I think we'd all agree that even though there are lots of advantages, I'm happy I moved. My family is here. My sons are basically enjoying lots of life. Hey, Shalan. Hi, my friends on Instagram, and hi, my friends in the club, wherever you are. Let me say hi and just kind of move this over so I can see everybody who's here. Thank you for being here. Okay. How do you find the confidence to be again? How do you find the confidence and to find your footing? There are a couple of things I think are necessary. So when I came here, I did another postgrad. I did a graduate degree here as well. I did a second master's, and subsequently began to work, in a professional setting. And it was pretty difficult because, especially if you are from uh, the Caribbean, or maybe especially like Africa, any of these places, there is that sense of, I need to get ahead and I need to work very hard. And I think a lot of immigrants come from societies that privilege working hard as opposed to getting along. And one of the things I'll never forget that my supervisor here told me, I'll never forget it, which is why I still recommend this book to people all the time: How to Win Friends and Influence People. I remember her pulling me aside and saying that, you know what, sometimes it might be better. People might hire people who have the soft skills as opposed to those people who are able to simply push a lot of work. Like I was one of those. And I would ever forget that lesson. I think it was an implicit threat, like shape up or ship out. That too. But I've subsequently had to have that conversation with other immigrant friends, other immigrant professionals who are, but I'm doing all I can. I'm working the best in the office, and yet still you're not the most popular one. You're not even popular. You're like the one who seems to always have a problem with people. And while there are many things that might go into that, some of it might just be where we came from and who we are, and finding our footing into this new place and staking your claim without losing ground. Okay. And you have to learn how to be friendly in a different kind of way. One of the hardest things for me was working with a colleague. I'm very introverted. I was in an office space. Hey, Emlyn, how you doing? And on top of her not doing her work, okay, she just was always talking. The office darling, but the person who did the least work in the office but got along. And it was very difficult because that work got passed on to me. And I would not be very friendly after you gave me your work to do. Can anybody identify with that? And I kind of had to learn, a lot of things happened. Like I got some coaching on it. And I remember my coach said to me, you know what? I don't know that you could win. I think perhaps you should learn to get along, learn how things are done in this new culture. And I mean, I still have some ways to go. Still have some ways to go. All right. It's still not, it's still not easy sometimes, but you've learned that getting along with people in a new way, being able to apologize, being able to say things differently might be one of the things that we as immigrants need in a new space to get along and to get ahead. Okay. So, one of the books that really changed things for me was How to Win Friends and Influence People. Does anybody know that book? Has anybody read it? The examples and so on are a bit outdated. Thank you, Francis. You say you agree 100%. Yeah, thank you. The examples might be a little dated, but that book is really great in terms of, what how do you satisfy the need in people to want to talk to you? And what I've realized is, for every single person, if you can answer the question, what's in it for me, you make friends and you make acquaintances for life. Okay? That if you show interest, genuine interest in people, not just to manipulate them, but simply because human beings are interesting. I've come to that conclusion: human beings are interesting, that you literally can build better bridges than just simply pushing work, staying in your cubicle, staying in your office, being the person who it's difficult to approach. Like, you don't want to be that person. I found that, right? Yes, you've read the book and you've learned a lot, right, Evelyn? Yeah, for sure. Me too. I still read it from time to time because it's such a big book, such a great book, I should say. It's not a big book, is it? So there's that thing about learning to get along and making it a marker. So I found that it's even easier now, going back home in the Caribbean, dealing with my own people who I know intrinsically because I am of them. It's even easier with those new skills to be able to get along, and you see differences, but then it's quicker to apologize, it's quicker to smooth things over in the interest of getting work done, getting to the matters, that the things that matter, etc. So I think it's a great thing to get along. That's one thing that I think being in a new country has taught me. And yeah, and it's still a work in progress. Let's put it that way. So here are a couple other things in terms of you are an immigrant professional. It's just been on my mind, so I thought I'd bring it to talk about today. How are you getting along? How did you survive? How did you get to the point where you are now? For me, it's 9 years later, right? And, looking forward to other things. But here's the first thing that I'm happy for. I think that if when you come as an immigrant professional, you need to have, first of all, or second of all, we discussed getting along. You need to have a clear identity of who you are. Why do I say that? Because, for example, not for example, I'm black and proud. But I'm Caribbean black. I grew up in a homogenous society. I love to say that because it means so much to me, and I appreciate having grown up seeing people who look like me doing, I like to say, great things in positions of leadership, as teachers, in the government, everywhere there was influence and power. People look like me because I grew up in a very small country. But then you get here and it's way different, especially in my part of Canada. It's just very different. And I'm happy that I had that initial experience of knowing that people like me do great things and where I come from, so that that is the blueprint upon which I come here, and I get to filter out, the insinuations, racism, prejudice. In a sense, you are always asking the question silently, but do you know where I came from? Do you know what I saw? Do you know what I can do? And it's not a boastful anything, it's just a quiet sense of knowing your identity. And so when you have that clear sense of who you are more able not to get swept in with a lot of the isms that might surround you when you come as an immigrant professional. There are great things that happen to you at home, okay? There are great things. You came with a sense of living a certain kind of life. You perhaps enjoyed a certain amount of success. And I always say to immigrants, like, don't forget it. Professional back home, in a sense, can also work here. Many times, even though we enjoyed success in our professional lives back home as immigrants, we get here and we lose that confidence. We lose the ability to talk because we sound different and we're not sure of the culture. Of course, you're not, but you can learn. There's certain way you need to learn the codes of the place, like for sure, you need to. But at the same point, remember the identity that got you places. It can still work for you in your new country, is what I'm saying. So that's the first thing, a clear identity of who you are. Then let's go to that topic of resilience. That's the one thing I think we all learned from COVID. We learned our level of resilience. Those of us who didn't have it perhaps got some more of it. Those of us who already were resilient got to exercise it in on an even deeper level. I think especially people who come from maybe third world countries like there is a sense in which you can survive the hard, and it can serve you well in your new country. There is a sense in which, because you didn't have all the creature comforts perhaps of living in a developed country that you're coming to, that you learned to survive. And many immigrants find themselves, I think it's underrated, the level at which we have to dig deep for us to come up with answers, come up with resources. And that's my next point, actually, resourcefulness. Come up with ways and solutions to the things that we face, that other people who are accustomed to not having to exercise the resilient muscle, they don't know and did not know what to do. But you knew how to cope. It was your existence before you moved in the first place. Okay? So that's the next thing. You have a tradition of resilience. So you dig deep and you bring that with you into the new place for you to be able to solve the problems that you will face. Just a little side note. So hey Lydia, how you doing? Nice to see you. So just in terms of resilience and not giving up, right? One of my sons, he needed a new phone, and usually when I call the phone company because we were on a plan, they usually waive whatever tab we get the phones on a plan, and whatever tab is left over, they usually waive it because it's not much left anyways, and they just put a new phone and you just start paying bit by bit, whatever, okay? So I called the phone company trying to get the phone for, hey Anne Marie, how are you? Trying to get this phone for my son. And the person on the line says to me, okay, I have to pay off the tab, whatever is left. It wasn't much, less than $100. I have to pay off that tab before, I can get the new phone. At which point I said, I'm a loyal customer and I've done this before. So I've always called, and, they give the courtesy of waiving the tab and starting me on a new plan. Can this be done? Well, no, ma'am, I don't think it can be done. I'm like, well, with all due respect, is there anybody else I can speak to? Because it has been done in the past. And very matter of fact, I'm not quarreling, I'm not raising my voice, because if this is a matter of holding on, I will hold on. Okay. And hey, Veronica, how are you doing? Hi. Nice to see everybody here. And so, yeah, we went back and forth, stayed on the phone. I put it on speakerphone, went about my business. I was doing something else on the computer, but I just didn't give up because it can be done. And no, you know what I mean? And that simply comes from being able to fight and knowing what is yours. And that comes from, I think, where I came from. I don't know that it's a matter of, it's also experience. It's also who I am, but it's also a matter of having experience dealing with such matters. So you just don't give up. You just be resilient. So I don't know if it was to outlast, whether gentleman thought I would hang up or whatever, but no. So he came back on, and then he said, yeah, it's possible. He spoke to whoever, whatever, and it's possible. I was like, thank you very much. And then, we arranged to get the new phone, and it was done. So you have that tradition of resilience. Here's another thing that you have: resourcefulness. You guys, please tell me why back in your home country you were reading everything. You were, you know, interpreting the material around you. In fact, if I may, especially if you did stuff like prepare all the paperwork for you to migrate to Canada or the US, you are accustomed of dealing with forms and a lot of information. Why, when you get to your new home, do we let secondhand information from other people, maybe other generations who went before us and did not find themselves working in offices and in high positions, etc.? Most probably, when they came, our ancestors, or not ancestors, maybe if you are like me, like a third generation St. Lucian here in Canada for my family, those who came before you didn't necessarily enter the same places that you did. Why then would you forget that back home you were doing all of these things, all of these, you know, professional things, and just come here and rely on what other people who don't share the experience would tell you? What do I mean by that? We can't expect people who are not going where we are going to be able to guide us. They weren't there. So they had a certain experience when they came to this new country many years ago, in some cases, decades ago. And you come with your fly self and your experiences and maybe qualifications. A lot of people are coming as immigrant professionals now, okay? But the family that went before you did not have that experience. So it means you literally have to be resourceful and sit with the tons of information around you to be able to make sense of it. And what I've realized is That ability to do that, it first of all starts from a can do attitude. I can do hard things. No, I can do this. No, I did these forms, perhaps. I've filled out forms. I've done this. I've done that. I can sit with this information for however long and I can figure out my way. We forget that we had a tradition of resourcefulness. We forget that. We come here and we just listen to what everybody else tells us and we don't try to make it on our own. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we act that way. No, you have it in you. You have it in you to be resourceful. You just don't want to engage with the material and just rely on what other people say. But listen, if you sit down and figure things out for yourself, you'll be so much better for it. What I've realized too is that you can actually get new information that can inform the lived experience of those people that you're coming here to meet, because you are taking the time in your space and your capacity, your new capacity, to be able to interface with the information. Don't forget that, okay? Don't forget that. All right. So here's something else. So you come to a new country, and some people, when they come, they don't even want to engage with the new culture. I feel like sometimes, in a way, because I'm like, I prefer to kind of stay by myself, but that has changed a lot, really. I've got good friends here. I've enjoyed experiences, learned a whole lot, still am learning. It's a wonderful way to be curious. And that's my next point, that if you are an immigrant coming to a new country, be curious. Now, here's the thing. You know what else goes along with curiosity? Hey Violet, how you doing? Hi. Nice to see you here. Right. You know what else comes with curiosity? Humility. Because you're going to mess up. You're going to mess up. You're going to wear the wrong clothes, not know what people are talking about, put your foot in your mouth. And so you will not be on the solid sure ground that you were on when you were in your own country, and that's okay. It's to make it not mean anything. Earlier on, I had my last class for Speak with Confidence today. Oh my goodness, that was a nice group. You know, so we've come to the end of it. Speak with Confidence 6, right? And yeah, today was the last class. And one of my students presented on that, what you call it, that philosophy by Caroline Dweck, between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And she was saying that, if you have the growth mindset, what goes along with it is that nothing is static. Nothing is just what you seem. You can grow. You leave space for growth and for making mistakes, and recognize that if you make a mistake, it doesn't mean that you're less of a person because you made a mistake. We're all in this journey. And so I feel like, as an immigrant, the two things have always had to go together. Well, they always will, whether you're an immigrant or not, come to think about it. But you see, curiosity and humility, those two things will get you places, not pretending you know when you don't know. Although, on the other hand, let's not forget, we have good old Google. Many a time when my Canadian friends are speaking to me and I don't know what they're talking about, I will just simply Google, okay? And sometimes it pays to kind of stem the ignorance by doing a quick Google search to see what people are talking about. Hey, Leonise, how are you doing? So I find that works for me. So let me just recap, and I have one more that I want to discuss in a bit more detail. Okay, before we end. So we spoke about just being free and being nice, and approachable, and especially if you come as an immigrant professional, recognizing that the standards and the value system in your new workplace are different. That while perhaps in your it was maybe survivor mode when you were back home, and for a lot of people from the third world, that's what it is. I don't know that we make anything of it. I don't. That's just what it is. But you come here and there's a greater value on the soft skills. Okay. I can just see some of my friends being like, soft skills, Lisa? Anywho, I'm not talking to you. Right? But that's the first thing. Learn those soft skills, learn the code of the place. I always keep in my mind just what my supervisor said, that you want to create that bridge, that even out of work, when people don't have to swallow to kind of gulp to come by a cubicle, because that girl, no. Yeah, you want to be the person who is amenable, agreeable, that kind of way. There are a couple others. For example, what I've loved about coming as an immigrant, fully grown as an adult, was that I had a clear identity of who I was. That I came from a tradition of seeing people around me doing great things who look like me. And I didn't let that go when I came here, no matter what patterns I saw. It just didn't apply because I had lived a different experience and I valued that and validated it by going out and doing things and doing stuff where perhaps I might be the only person looking like me in the room, but it didn't matter because some person has to start it for everybody else to see that it's possible. Okay. So there also is, if you're an immigrant coming, I like to talk about it this way: resilience. Don't forget how you got here. Don't forget where you came from. Huh? Don't forget where you came from. Okay. So you know where you came. Let me just put off WhatsApp is going off. Yes, let me leave that site. Okay. You know what you came from. You have a tradition of resilience, of being able to bounce back from things. From when life gives you a curveball, you respond in kind, that you're able to adjust. You dig deep for that same strength, right? And it's especially poignant because here's the example that I have. So this is not the first time that I've been an immigrant. So I left St. Lucia and, well, kind of like a student immigrant. And I went to Trinidad to study when I was like 18, 19. And so that was my first like immigrant experience, even though it was temporary. And what I saw has informed the attitude even to a day like today. I wasn't the only one. I came with my friends from St. Lucia. And when you come from the Caribbean, you don't have a lot of student aid. So you take your loan for you to go to study. And that stake is so high that it makes you act a different way. So you'd find, for example, there would always be a line of St. Lucian students sitting in the front of the class. And for me, I knew the collective thought for all of us was, I have to go back home and pay this loan. Oh, yeah, I'm going to sit in the front. I'm not going to play around because the stakes are high. And in a sense, when you move from, maybe the Caribbean or Africa, wherever you are, and you come to a bigger country, the stakes are very high as well. It might not just be you. It might not just be you and your immediate family counting on you to succeed. There might be brothers and sisters. There might be cousins. There's a whole side, a whole posse that you left back home that might be counting on you to succeed. And so, like, even in my job at the university, dealing with immigrant students and having been an immigrant student myself, an international student, I'm very mindful and very particular to them and their plight, because I know that so much more is riding on their success than perhaps the average student who lives at home here and, has it a bit easier. Of course, everybody gets the same experience, but what I do believe is, if we're going after equity in terms of making the playing field level, you have to provide even more support for those who are coming from further. That just makes a lot of sense. So that resilience comes from that sense that I cannot afford to fail. I can't. There's too much riding on it for my family, for my future. So I'm not going to come here and play around, or I'm not going to come here and not perform. There's that sense, that drive in, I think, every immigrant to make it, that perhaps sometimes it gets mistaken for what it's not. So you have resilience. Here's another thing that you have: resourcefulness. Remember the long process of getting here, wherever you find yourself as an immigrant. There was lots of paperwork, lots of sitting, maybe in offices, making calls, staying on the line for hours perhaps, until somebody with a stranger accent than yours comes and speaks to you and you have to repeat yourself a number of times. Like even Siri sometimes doesn't understand me. That's too funny. Even Siri sometimes reminds me that I'm an immigrant. Okay? Because she doesn't get it. And then I have to call one of my sons to say whatever. But that's okay. There'll be a Siri that is from the Caribbean one of these days. I'm just saying. So there's resourcefulness. And there's also a willingness, I think, to engage with the culture in which you find yourself. And I was saying that I find that curiosity goes hand in hand with being humble. You're going to mess up and it's okay. You're not perfect. And you know what? Like there was this guy who here's the story. So Bob Proctor has this seminar thing on YouTube. It's running live all the time. It's all his recorded stuff running live. Don't tell me how that works, right? And he gives a story about a man who was in one of his seminars that he was teaching about, wealth and whatever. And he saw that this participant was looking especially uncomfortable and even angry. And so he asked in the break, he went to the man and he said to him, what's the problem? Aren't you not enjoying or learning from this seminar? And the man said to him very frankly, you know what? For somebody who is teaching, I just find you're making so many grammatical errors, and like your English is just not top of the line. Why should I be learning from you? Guess what Bob Proctor responded to the man? Very frankly and very humbly, very matter of factly, he's like, oh, that's easy to answer. That's because I didn't go to school. And then he goes on to say, having settled that little thing in his mind, he wasn't embarrassed, he wasn't anything. He was simply humble and get to the main point. He's like, but if you want to learn how to get to the top, let me show you. Right? If you can get past the fact that I didn't go to school and I don't say everything okay and get to the value that I'm presenting to you, then I can teach you a thing or two. Okay? And he says that this guy went on to become, very high in the company, and then went on to form his own company, made millions, etc. And I just admired there's his practicality and the humility. Like, that's okay. But that's easy to answer. I didn't go to school. So what do you expect me to do? It's the same thing. If I'm from the Caribbean, I will speak a certain way. And that's okay. Doesn't prevent me from being the best that I am, because that's all part of it, right? So that's what I'm talking about. And here's the last thing. So the curiosity and the humility. Hi. Oh, my aunt is on. Hi, Brandy. Yes, Leonis, me too. I just love Bob Proctor. Yes, for sure. Me too. Me too. Yes. Okay, so here's the last thing. When life gets tough in your new country, I think it's very important that you have an outlet for the stress. There are times like, especially when I first started, okay, no problem. There are times when I first came here and I was learning just deep, painful lessons about how to get along in the workplace. Man, I'm telling you, at the end of the day, I would just simply jump in my vehicle and start to blast some soca music. Marshall on blast. Just something to remember home, to know that it was okay, to be less stressed, to kind of like, you know, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So I want to ask those immigrant professionals who are perhaps having a hard time, wherever you find yourself in the society, then your new society, in the workplace that is especially tough, what is your outlet? Where are you de-stressing? What is there to remind you? Hey, Alicia, good morning, good afternoon, Diamonds. What is there to remind you of home? And to remind you that you came from a place that perhaps it was okay. I think like if you're an immigrant professional, you kind of need to have that outlet. Some people find it in family, in the extended family that reminds them of home, that came from home. Some people find it in having a big community from back home. I know lots of people. I don't know. I have extended family here, but I don't know that we have like a big extended St. Lucian community kind of. But I mean that's okay. But my point is find your fix. And I mean that in the most pure sense of the way, not something where you obsess and you fly off the handle. But find a fix, find some kind of way to kind of alleviate the stress of just becoming a new person, just becoming a new person. So that's it today, you guys. So this is for the immigrant professionals. I hope you're getting by. I hope you're winning. I hope you remember that professional and good back home is good in your new place and that you can make a contribution. I think a lot of the reasons that we just come and we settle for what everybody else gets is because of the lack of confidence, not believing that those skills that you had back home make enough sense in your new society to make a difference. And it's quite the opposite. It's because you came from that tradition where, you saw people doing things a certain way that it might be easier to inform what's going on in your new society. It might be because you didn't experience certain negative things back home, perhaps racism, for example, that you might be better able to walk into every situation like you were the bumblebee. You did not know that you were not supposed to fly. You didn't get the memo that said that you were supposed to be less. It might be because of that tradition that you come from, that you are maybe insulated and you're also propelled forward. So if you're an immigrant here today, I hope you're enjoying life, enjoying your new society, adding to it, enjoying it, learning, and contributing in the best way possible, because that's what it's about. I think we're all needed in this world. Don't you need me? I need you. I do. I think I do. Okay. So I think we all need each other wherever you find yourself. And there's the dignity of not because I come to a new place that I'm supposed to be less or I'm supposed to settle. Like I remember I had a prof once who said that he was complaining about something here in Canada. And he said, like, another prof is like, well, at least you're not driving a taxi back home. What's that? You know, these people make you wanna, I don't even know. Hey, Tamara, but that's not right. I think we can all agree on that. And you have to find a way when swipes like that are taken at your person to kind of de stress somewhere and to remember who God said you are, because that's what it all boils down to. Anywho, my time is up, you guys. Thank you for joining me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Please subscribe to Basement Chronicles on YouTube. I would absolutely love if you could do that. I'm also on IG. If you can join me there, at Lisa M Dublin. And if you're watching this on the replay, please type replay so I can kind of gauge the numbers and that kind of thing. Also, don't forget to like the video and share it. Tag somebody who's an immigrant professional who might benefit from hearing these steps to kind of make it and to win in your new country. Okay, that was the topic for today. All right, folks, have a wonderful day. I'll be on tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. MST, Mountain Standard Time. If you are in the Caribbean, that would be 6 o'clock. If you are in New York, that's also 6 o'clock because it's the same time right now because of the changeover for Eastern Standard Time. Thank you and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.